live. And I'm Chuck Fala, and on behalf of goRIA, Fueled by Investment News, welcome to the Orion Ascent Conference. We are on location, and we'll be here for the next couple of days. And whenever I do these on-location segments, I always like to start off big. And we are doing so with Dr. Daniel Crosby, who is the Chief Behavioral Officer of Orion. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Chuck.
So if Daniel's here, that means we are talking about BFI, behavioral finance. And when I say he is the expert in BFI, he literally wrote the book on it.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased that you're taking some time to talk with us today.
No, absolutely. Thrilled to be here.
Fantastic. All right, so let's start off a little broadly. Behavioral finance, for the few advisors that haven't heard that term yet, because it's super popular.
Yeah.
Give us a little overview on what exactly that is.
So, behavioral finance is just finance that accounts for the messiness of human nature, right? A lot of our traditional economic models were modeled after an idea of sort of perfect decision-making, maximizing utility and things like that. Behavioral finance says we're predictably irrational and that there's mistakes that we make rather systematically. And how can we design systems and processes that help people overcome those and maximize wellness as well?
I think that's so important. So I've been an advisor for 30 years. So I started off in the 90s in New York City, cold calling and selling stocks. So how things have changed, right? So I tell, especially younger advisors now, if you are looking to build a book of business because you're going to beat the market on that basis alone, good luck. And be ready to get new clients every single year because you will inevitably be wrong.
Right.
So instead, they should be focusing on planning. And a big part of planning is behavioral finance. How are you seeing advisors at Orion implement that?
Well, you're exactly right. So our CEO, Natalie, shared some amazing stats this morning. It was an Accenture study from a couple years ago asking people what they were looking for from their relationship with their advisor. The number one thing people said is they wanted to be understood. And the number two thing they said is they wanted to work with someone who shared their values. None of that's beating the market, right? So what we find is that it's really easy to get the technical stuff right. That's really easily vetted. And beyond that, it's about connection. So at Orion, we're seeing lots of different ways that advisors are implementing human-first advice or behavioral advice. One is through our Orion Advisor Academy. We have a free CE course that people can CE for the year, including at no cost.
Whoa, okay.
So about 80% of that's of human-first behavioral type content. And then we also have a suite of behavioral finance tools that we've baked into our planning process. The research shows us that if you teach someone something, and this is depressing for me as a writer and a teacher, if you teach someone something, they forget it within 3 days. 90% of people forget it within 3 days if they haven't implemented it, personalized it. What we're doing is baking that tech with behavioral content so that it's sort of woven into the process, right? Traditionally, it's been like, well, let's teach our clients about the different biases, about the way that they do the X and Y, but we know that that's sort of out the window at the very moment they need it most. We think it's more powerful to have it embedded.
That makes a ton of sense because, and conferences are a good example of that, right? We come to these conferences, we get all excited, we get all juiced up, but we get back and life takes over. And it sounds like what you guys are doing is baking into the ongoing process to keep reminding them the importance of staying on track, not selling at the lows and buying at the highs and things like this. Yes.
No, that's exactly right. Think about if we all did what we were supposed to do, right? If we all did what we knew to do, we'd all be billionaires with six packs. And yet here we are, here we are.
Sure.
And we're not always implementing things perfectly. There's a stat that I love to talk about. It's a little depressing, but doctors and nurses actually smoke at a higher rate than the general population. So knowing that you should do something and doing that something are very different considerations. And we feel that one of the ways that we can overcome that is by embedding behavioral finance in our planning process.
Right. That's a shocking statistic, right? They should know firsthand, right?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Doctors are slightly more, nurses are nearly double.
Probably because they're dealing with the doctors, I guess.
That's right. It's a stressful, it's a tough job. No judgment.
No judgment at all. All right, very cool. So we're here at this conference, and one thing I always ask all of our guests at the conference is, what's new? What can you tell us about? What can you announce? What can we break here on goRIA.com?
Well, we are breaking it here. This is my first conversation about a pulse check. So pulse check is going to allow advisors to monitor the holistic wellness of their clients right alongside their mental wellness. And it draws on the science of positive psychology. So positive psychology, whereas sort of traditional clinical psychology, which I'm trained in, right, is the study of what makes us sad and depressed and anxious and broken. Positive psychology is the study of what makes us well and whole and what makes us flourish. And so what Pulse Check is a very quick little 2-3 minute assessment that your clients can take, score themselves across 6 dimensions, things like happiness, engagement, advancement, relationships, truth, and strength, and see holistically how well they're flourishing and where there's gaps between where they want to be and where they are. So McKinsey, a couple of years ago, came out with a study that said, look, in just a couple of years, advisors are going to be more like rated life coaches who are tasked with the holistic wellness of their clients. And since money touches every part of our lives, we believe that it's instrumental in someone's overall well-being. So we think this is going to be an incredible tool for monitoring your clients' personal holistic wellness alongside their financial wellness, and having good conversations with them about trade-offs between the two.
Yeah, I tell you, that's something that I do every day with clients, and to have sort of a structured approach to that sounds like it'd be a really nice tool to have. Perhaps you would come on again and do maybe a full podcast on that, because I think that'd be great content for our audience here.
Love to. Easy yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I think we'll end on that. Okay, and look, on behalf of goRIA, I keep looking at the monitor. I need to look at the camera. I always forget. Fueled by Investment News, I'm Chuck Vela, and we are just getting started. So we've got a full day of content today, a full day of content tomorrow. So stay tuned. We'll be back in about another hour, hour and a half with another great guest. Thanks for joining us. And Daniel, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it. Okay.